Welcome to the channel. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Well, this particular style of watch, as we all know, is the most homaged, most replicated watch style out there. Now, they start anywhere from between £30 going up to £300 for this particular one, just within the AliExpress brands. Now, regarding specifications, they're all pretty much the same. Pretty much all of them offer us stuff like sapphire crystal, strong bezel inserts, bi-directional, 120 click, 60 click, 90 click. They offer some sort of water resistance. They offer both 3-link and 5-link bracelets and ceramic inserts, etc. Now, where they do differ is the movement on offer. Some offer quartz movements, Japanese autos, and Chinese or Swiss clones of the ETA variations. So what does distinguish them, and how do we distinguish them? And to be honest, I find it so difficult to review this style of watch unless it is something quite different. After the unboxing, I gave this watch so much thought and I decided it would be one main factor which for me would determine its value and its need in the market. And we also need to see if this version from Sugess stands out from the crowd or does anything exceptional in order for me to recommend this. Spec wise, as I said, it's pretty much the same as all of them except one aspect. That's the movement. The movement is a Dang Dong Peacock 3032 movement, which I know absolutely nothing about, so we will be discussing that much later in the review. So let's look at the things this watch does right. Regarding the dial aspect, it's a nice lacquered black dial, so you get a deep black color. You have applied hour markers with a polished frame, basic white printed text, and a printed minute track, which again is like the majority of the alternatives out there. Now, unlike most, the Cyclops that you do see is also sapphire with AR coating, which is a nice touch, and it has the correct 2.5 times magnification, which does give a crisp magnification to the date. The handset is also slightly noticeably nicer than what you find on the cheaper versions of this style of watch, and the lume is also better than most. It's bright, well applied, and lasts quite a while. Now, the bezel rotation is bi-directional with a 24 click function, as it is a GMT watch. Now, the rotation between the intervals is smooth and it rests into a notch. The clicks are not audible, but they do actually feel refined, and we can see that the bezel insert does also line up. Now, the bezel construction is okay, scalloped edges, but it is a bit rough to touch. Now, this is the case with most other watches, and rarely do you find a more refined example. Next up, the case. Now, does it stand out amongst the rest? It doesn't really, but that doesn't mean it's bad. It's got the same style of brushing that you find on other good examples, linear along the lugs and highly polished sides. Now, what I can say is that the polishing done to the sides of the watch is of a very high standard. They use a technique called lapping to create this kind of polished side, and to spot a really well done example is to be able to see a crisp, defined edge along those lugs. Now, this is an indicator of a high quality finish, but it doesn't do much for me because I think these cases are some of the most basic cases you can get. Now, the crown function is particularly nice. It does stand out on a lot of Sugess watches and Seaston watches, and once you do open the crown, you can see a few gaskets, which is promising, of course, for the water resistance, and it screws down amazingly well. You've got zero friction on any of the threads. Case back is standard with a standard type of finishing, and the bracelet featured on this watch is the 5-link bracelet, and it's a nice enough bracelet, solid end links with a great fit. Although due to the second link, you do get an increase lug to lug of just under 51 millimeters. Now, it's a true 5-link bracelet, and you can see all the individual links held together by screws, and it has very decent brushing and polishing to those center links. Now, it has a bit of flexibility, which is by design, and it does also have good articulation. Now, the clasp is actually really well made. It features brushed sides and a polished center with a signed flip lock. On the inside, you do get milled internals, 3 micro adjustments with an added wetsuit extension. Now, the click is also pretty satisfying. Now, again, while everything is pretty well made on the watch, I don't think there is nothing that stands out too much or anything kind of outstanding or jumping out to me when I look at this watch. Now, the movement, this is where I had to do a fair bit of digging. Now, it's a GMT movement, the Dang Dong Peacock 3032. It's Chinese made with a beat rate of 28,800 vibrations per hour, but it is virtually unknown to the majority of us. Now, taking off the case back, this is where it looks very similar to an ETA, and it's most likely a clone to the ETA 2893 or the Sellita SW330. So when I placed this on the time grapher, it was actually running really well, a high and healthy amplitude, a 0 beta error, and running fast around 5 or 6 seconds a day. Now, of course, this is just a snapshot in time. I have no clue as to the reliability, but what I did manage to find out is that Dangdong offer a lot of movements to the dark and dangerous world of replica watches. Now, this particular movement was an early version to a much more improved version used in the newer GMTs. Therefore, it does have the incorrect hand stack, so it's not a true GMT as Sugess suggests on their website. So it runs like a Seiko NH34 or a Pearl DG or a Hands Out 6460 movement. It's probably most similar to the Hands Out 6460 with the way this watch works and runs. So if it was to be anything that would make this watch stand out, it would have been a true GMT movement. As I said, the others don't offer this, and they all have caller GMT functions, and I think this aspect would have been enough to justify this model for Sugess. And I would be saying make sure you buy this because it has something which the others don't offer. And on wrist, the watch sits pretty much like the other versions out there. It's very uncomfortable due to that rigid straight case, and this is probably subjective to wrist size. My wrist size is 6.5 inches, and I don't like how any of these homages seem to fit my wrist because there is no overall comfort on the wrist. The case is just too flat. The lugs actually sit up and they don't seem to curve around the wrist. Now, there are other examples from microbrands. For example, I used to own a Steinhardt. Now, those Steinhardts are also homages to the particular style, but they've done something very different with the case. The case actually curves, therefore it sits so much better on wrist. Now, this case isn't uncomfortable due to anything to do with Sugess, but it's such as the design. The bracelet is actually really well made. It fits nicely, and the case doesn't come across as overly sharp, and it's just edgy, you know, like the other designs. So to summarize, I would say, for my opinion, check out San Martin watches, for example. Check out all the versions because they do offer a large range of variations. They offer the Milsub style, GMT style watches. They offer, you know, some of these styles in a 39mm case also. And they do have their own bracelets on there, their own clasps, and offer something different to the rest. Also, the quality of San Martin is also really good, and they use the reliable NH35 or the YN55 from Epson, or even I think the more proven PT5000 instead of this Dangdong Peacock 3032. So that's my final thoughts on this watch. That's it for me today, guys. Let me know your thoughts on this Sugess GMT, or feel free to add to anything I've said or offer any corrections or criticisms. It is all appreciated. Thank you as always for watching, and I will see you on the next video.